Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command.
The Cardiac Commanders are the Clutch Commanders!
With former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
Welcome into Take Command alongside former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen. I'm Grant Paulsen. You can listen to this pod 3 times a week. You can also watch us on the 106.7 The Fan and Team 980 YouTube channels. You can listen to me on The Fan with Danny Rouillet from 2 to 6:30 every single day. Logan, Monday Night Football in the rear view. The Commanders lose a heartbreaker at the Horn. A Jake Moody 38-yard field goal beats Washington 25-24 final. The Commanders fall to 3-3 through 6 weeks of football on the season.
Yeah, kind of a tough game. You know, just going through the film this morning, it was one of these weird, and even last night, kind of just reviewing it, like kind of mentally checking my notes that I take during the game. It's like there's a lot of positive things to take away, but also you're like, man, it really comes down to a couple of moments. And obviously, you know, one of the most important statistics in terms of win losses is turnovers. And in this game, like you felt that so acutely. And it wasn't just the turnover, it was the time of the turnover. So I look at that and I say to myself, like, if you were to just watch this, that's the thing about watching film. For those who don't do it, is you go through and you're like, oh, this plays okay, this plays okay, this plays okay. And when you finish it, all said and done, there's probably, you know, like I go through the ledger and it's green and red. There's a lot of green in the ledger. But the red ones are very, very dark red, and they really impact the game. And I had a coach tell me one time, which I've said on the show before, it's like, you know, this was for me in 2000, I think it was 12 or 13. I had a fumble against the Giants, but I had one of the highest graded games I've ever had. And he said, like, you know, not all plays are of equal value. And I really felt like that's what this game was today.
It's a great point. You know, one bad one can be worth 10 of the good ones, so to speak. And that certainly happened. Let's start with the offense because there's a lot to get to on that side of the ball. The 3 turnovers maybe being the pivot point here. I thought when I watched back last night, it was a late night, but Jaden Daniels, even watching back, this was just the game copy. But I got to say that he made some really good, really accurate throws, was really decisive in the middle of the field. But the interception was really bad at a bad time in the red zone where he has Ertz underneath wide open, and he's got Debo streaking into the end zone open. And then there's obviously the fumble at the end of the game that ends up proving to be very costly. They had another turnover from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who put the ball on the ground for the second time in as many weeks in back-to-back quarters in the span of less than 10 rushes. So those 3 turnovers, as far as differences in the game, I think are where we have to start.
Yeah, so let's start with the turnover in the red zone. It was funny because I got to do London Fletcher was the legend of the game, obviously, because it's, you know, the critical catch week, and his wife passed away with cancer. So he's a perfect representative for that, and, you know, did a great job kind of getting that notoriety out during his first quarter. So I got to be up in the box. And so for that first interception, I got to kind of like have the perfect angle. And I actually thought the ball initially was going to the right spot. It's cover 3, and it looked like they were running some form of like 3 verticals. So, you know, when you get to that side, the guy on the inside is running across the formation. The guy in the slot is running vertical, and the outside guy is running a fade. And initially I thought that's the concept they were running, with the back kind of flaring to the flat to the left. But, you know, Zach Ertz kind of sits down over the ball, like kind of the middle of the field. There's nothing to hold there's nothing to hold that post safety in terms of guy crossing his face. There is a lane to throw that football. And I think Brisker does a really good job. You know, he's kind of this hook player of getting depth and reading the quarterback's eyes. So kudos to him. It's a nice play. So initially I thought the ball, at least from my angle, should have gone right where it was going. But then when you get the film, you kind of see the different angles. You see the depth the hook player is getting. You see the safety pushing across to Debo Samuel. And you say, wow, on paper versus this coverage, that's where the ball should go. Probably should have kind of felt that coverage, felt that nothing was holding that back safety, and probably got the ball to the back in the flat. So, you know, it's funny. Like if I was, I coached quarterbacks at the high school level. Like I would not fault the decision to throw that football. I like the aggressive nature, especially in the red zone. I'd probably say like, conceptually, is there something we can do to kind of hold this safety a little bit longer? But what I would also tell the quarterback is say, hey man, like this is where the ball should go versus cover 3, but they played it a little bit differently. This guy got a little bit more depth than you thought. We can get the ball to the flat right here and probably live to play another down. So again, it's kind of, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth a little bit, but like, I like the aggressiveness in the red zone. I'd also think it's a good learning moment for Jaden to say, hey man, like this is what we can and can't get away with. And this is why we can't turn the football over here going in to get points.
Yeah, and last year, throughout the season, it was just, right around 9 interceptions. And so for his career, this is not something we've seen a lot of, obviously. It was his first pick of the season. He'd gone 101 pass attempts without one. Quarterbacks get fooled, and that was certainly the case on that play to some extent. I thought, though, Debo had his guy kind of plastered, if you will. I mean, if you put that ball up with a little loft into the end zone, then it's not playable for the defender. Now, that I'm speaking about something that you wouldn't have done because I don't think he saw the kind of the hook defender there anyway. And so he was making a lower line drive throw kind of to the back shoulder. But I don't even know if he would have had to almost stop and come back to the ball to catch it anyway. It feels
I think you're trying to protect, and that's the thing that's weird about the concept. Like, Zach Ertz has a little bit of carte blanche to kind of freelance in this offense. So like if it was, I don't know the concept. So let me just say that right now. It looks to me like it's supposed to be 3 verticals with a flat control to the same side as a 3 vert. So you're getting a 4-man overload. John Bates is staying in pass protection to the offensive right. If you have a middle safety, he's going to push through that, and he's going to kind of play in between 1 and 2. If that's the case, like you want that number 3 vertical to kind of pull him away to protect that throw. But when Zach Ertz kind of stops the route, and again, that might be what he's supposed to do, it just doesn't seem like it fits with the concept. The safety is going to push all the way to number 2, who's Debo. So I think what Jaden's feeling there is he's thinking line drive throw, get the ball back shoulder to Debo to protect from that safety closing. Because again, there's nothing to hold him there. So that's the thing about the concept that felt really weird watching it on film is like, there's really nothing preventing that safety from just running right to number 2, if that's the correct route Zach Ertz is supposed to run. So again, like I don't know the concept, but on paper, I kind of say, hey, someone's got to kind of push across this safety's face. We got to get someone to hold them there. We got to ensure this throw for the quarterback. If they get that type of coverage contour, yes, you're 100% right. That ball could have a little bit more loft, could be a little bit more towards the back of the end zone. But again, nothing's holding that post player. He is just pushing directly to the seam. And that ball, I think, has to be a back shoulder to protect the receiver from the post player. And again, he doesn't have any loft on it, and the hook player is able to make a play on it.
Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen take command after the Bears get a 1-point win over the Commanders. Washington, 6 games in, finds itself 3-3. All right, let's go to the Ja'Cory Kroski Merritt fumble, just in chronological order here. I mean, this one's pretty simple. We could break down whatever concept if you want to, but the ball got knocked out. He's running. He tries to make a move. He's kind of spinning back toward the middle of the field, and an oncoming defender he doesn't see coming knocks the ball out. Now, that is 2 fumbles for him in as many games. We're not at a point clearly where they're overly concerned because in both cases, they went right back to him on the next play from scrimmage. And in fact, in this game, it didn't change the fact with Chris Rodriguez, not healthy, that he was the bell cow. He got almost every single carry, just a couple for Jeremy McNichols. But on a scale of 1 to panic, I mean, where is your now anxiety about him with the football after 2 fumbles?
So 1 to panic, 10 being panic. I'm probably like a 2. And again, and I'll tell you why. Like, so in both instances, and again, you got to protect the football. So I'm not trying to absolve him of responsibility. I do think there are outlying circumstances. And what I mean by that is there's a quick pressure in San Diego. So there's a guy right in his face and he's kind of trying to get away. And usually it's been my experience that backs are going to be a little bit careless with the football because they're trying to do something crazy, get away from a tackler that's right there. This was also a very similar look. They're running some type of bounce. So bounce for me, I don't know what they call it here, is kind of like that perimeter run, like their version of outside zone where you get a down block by the tackle, you pull the guard, the center, they're out to the perimeter. It was one of the runs that was so successful versus the Chargers last week. I think you got to give the Bears a lot of credit here because they run they bring a pressure away from the tight end and they stunted the defensive line. there ends up being no hole and a quick pressure in the back's face. And so, again, I just find in my experience when the back's in that kind of scenario, the ball is live. You know what I mean? Like there's just, for whatever reason, the ball security becomes a little less lax. They're thinking about the rush. They're thinking about the move. The ball security, which becomes paramount, is kind of, or maybe this is a better way to put it, the player's out of rhythm in terms of their process. It's like, get the ball, secure the ball, make the cut. Now it becomes get the cut, then secure the ball. And I think that was kind of his process there, and the ball came out. And again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't protect the football. He absolutely should. He's going to tell you the same thing. It's a big moment in the game. It gives the defense a short field to have to defend. But I do think, like, when you look at how the Bears played run defense in this game, you got to give them a lot of credit. They came out, did a lot of things they hadn't showed in the first couple of weeks. You feel the speed of Edmonds. You feel the return of the other linebacker, number 53, the guy they paid a lot of money, TJ Edwards. So you feel those guys exponentially. You feel the kind of the dynamism of the front in terms of movement. They brought much more pressure. They played much more 8-man box, and it made it tough going for Bill. And I think you felt it, some of the effect on that play.
This is why this league is so fascinating and frankly so fun at times. Not last night, maybe, is you can just never predict like how games are going to go. And when units are bad at something and playing groups that are elite at something, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, you're about to get waxed, right? And what I mean by that is you got the number 1 rush offense against the number 32 rush defense last night in Washington against Chicago. And the Bears really did a nice job. I mean, at times, and dominated against the run. I mean, at the line of scrimmage. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was serviceable. He had a couple of really nice runs, long of 11, but it was 17 for 61. But if you take non-Jaden Daniels runs out of the equation, which was mostly scrambles anyway, 52 yards on 10 attempts. But Krosky-Merritt, Jalen Lane on an end around, McNichols twice, and Debo on one kind of jet carry. It was 20 for 65 yards last night. No. If you add up all running backs, I should say, it was 18 for 68. Then you throw in Debo and Jalen Lane. I mean, it was right around 20 for 70. Like, the Bears aren't going to do better than that maybe for the rest of the year, but you got to give them credit.
I think this is something that I talked about on the pregame show. It's like, you know that they're bad at the run game. I know that they're bad at the run game. They for sure know that they're bad at run defense. They're coming out of a bye. Both linebackers are getting healthy. Guys that have been nicked up. Guys that they paid a lot of money to. Guys that, quite frankly, are really good football players. And the thing about run defense is it's not complicated. It's literally like when you look at the analytics, when you look at the film supports this too. It's just, can I play more defenders than you have blockers? That's really what it comes down to. So if you got 7 blockers, can I play an 8-man blocking surface, right? And that's what they did. They just said, hey, we're going to play more 8-man blocking surface than you guys can handle. And not only does it affect number count, but it affects angles on double teams. We talked about this on the film review show that I did last week. One of the things that when you play the LA Chargers is you get these great double team angles. And a great double team angle to me is when the block's not out leveraged. So if I'm running counter, I'm on the right side. I want to be blocking to someone that's not head up on the combination, but back a gap. And so when I can do that, I can really sink the double team, really drive my legs, push that thing not only vertically, but laterally, and work to that backside defender. Here, because we've got more defenders in the box because of how they're running their line stunts, we're comboing to players that are stacked directly over us. And so they're going to peel combinations quickly. They're going to get to one-on-ones in the blocking surface more quickly. And again, like, that is just good, sound football. And one of the reasons you're able to do that is you say, hey, we like playing man-to-man on first down. We feel like we can play man-to-man on first down. And when you look at the history of this Cliff Kingsbury offense, since he's been here in Washington, it's like teams that play us well play heavy boxes, play man-to-man coverage on the perimeter. And one of the reasons they can do that is because Terry and Noah are out, right? You've got Moore, who had a pretty solid game, Luke McCaffrey, but nobody that really puts the fear of God in you when you're playing man coverage. And you felt that a little bit. So I think it's a combination of things. They're coming out of the bye. They had time to plan. They're getting healthy at the right time. All those things are factors, but you definitely feel that in terms of the rushing statistic and also the passing statistics. Like, when you go back and watch the film, nothing is easy. Everything's a labor, right? Obviously, you get the big play to Luke, but outside of that, it's like Jaden Daniels having to read stuff out, checking the football down. There's quick pressures because they're way more aggressive in terms of rushing, in terms of blitz patterns. So hats off to Chicago. They did a lot of stuff in the bye week. They came out kind of a different football team. And I think they were able to identify, quite frankly, some weaknesses with the team and kind of exploit them.
Yeah, I think that's well said. All right, we didn't get to the third turnover, and it was the most costly, clearly. Washington's trying to put the game away in what was like 4-minute offense. If you can go get a field goal there, they either have to go score a touchdown or maybe you just keep the ball till the end of the game if you keep picking up first downs. And then on a 3rd and 1, I actually love the second down play. I think that gets forgotten, all of this, which was Daniels making Montez Sweat look foolish and just kind of diving forward 1 yard shy of the sticks on a really impressive, like, Daniels against Atlanta scramble from a year ago. But 3rd and 1, they're in pistol. It's rainy. It's wet. Everybody seems to have an issue with that. I don't. I want to get your thoughts on that. That's kind of how they operate. It's what their offense is. So I'm not going to.
What's the issue?
Well, people are upset that they're like in shotgun and on a wet night in pistol. They're never under center. Yeah. So why would they be under center now? That's just working back from the result. It doesn't make any sense to me. But give me a thought on that on a rainy night when the ball's slick and all that stuff. And then also, the result of the play where pretty clearly Jaden just starts to lose the football before he gives it to Bill and puts it on the ground for what was the 3rd turnover of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dagger, quite honestly. And it's one of those things that just like the football gods do not smile on you. And I'm an analytics guy. I watch a lot of film. I don't like the football gods thing, but that's kind of how it felt when you're watching it, right? And again, like I was out on the field at this point. I was on the field for the whole second half. It was kind of this windy, misty, everything was kind of damp where you can't get the right gloves on because it's not raining, but it's not completely dry. So it was kind of an unusual weather situation, and that's not an excuse, but it just kind of provides context for what's going on there. And again, like ball comes out, doesn't quite have it, and you've seen this happen before. This happens under center. Like this is not like a thing that is unique to the pistol. Like the ball's a little bit wet, don't quite have it, trying to put the ball in the back's belly, and it's not there, and it bounces off the back, goes right to a defender. There is a soft spot. There's a crease in terms of combination there. Laramie Tunsil, Chris Paul do a great job when they're one-on-one. So I do think they'd get the first down, but you got to secure the football. And, even if it means not handing the football off. And again, like even if they don't get the first down there and they have to punt for whatever reason, I do think that they're in a position where they can still win the football game. So like it comes down to protecting the football, securing the ball. Like I'm not saying anything that's great here in terms of analysis, but that's all this is, right? It's Dan Quinn saying the same thing in the meeting today. Like we preach protecting the football, ball is life. We have 3 turnovers. And I think also if this turnover happens early in the game, you have time to overcome it. Because I did feel in the 3rd quarter that the Washington Commanders were the better football team. Despite all the good stuff that the Chicago Bears did, despite what they were doing defensively, despite the innovative nature of Ben Johnson's offense, I thought, man, the Commanders are a better football team right now. But because of when the turnover happens, you let a worse football team make a play and secure the game. And that's really what it comes down to. So very, very frustrating, very, very hard to watch. Like you just kind of flub away your destiny there on the ground. And I know a lot of the guys over there are probably sick today, but that's the nature of the game. These things happen sometimes. And there's no great analysis. Oh, you got to squeeze the football, hold the football, whatever. It's just got to secure the ball, got to protect it and hand it off and get that first down.
24-3, they'd outscored the Bears at one point in time going into, the 55-yarder on a missed tackle, which changed the whole game on the sideline. But to your point, that's not a reach to say they had been the better team or the momentum had been quelled and taken over by Washington. I mean, they were down 13-0 and then outscored Chicago 24-3 from that point and had complete control of the game until a game-changing defensive play again with a running back catching a ball in space, which has been a bugaboo for this defense. We'll get to that in our defensive breakdown coming up in a bit. Otherwise, outside of the turnovers, let's mow through some of the offensive plan. It seemed to me like Deebo Samuel was definitely his least productive game. It was not your prototypical kind of Deebo juice. I wonder about, after missing the week at practice, how much of a factor that was, or health from him maybe even as well. He didn't look compromised with the football, but 5 targets, 4 catches, 15 yards, really couldn't get him going. His only carry was a -1 that they played perfectly. what did you see from Debo? Because this was by far the best plan anybody's had against him, and how much of that was that heel?
Yeah, I think, Debo is a special football player, man, and we've seen how dynamic he can be each and every week. But I don't think he's a guy that you want to have to rely on to win versus man-to-man coverage consistently. Like, I don't think that's who you want to be. And so, obviously, the interception, he's on the seam. We talked about the construction of that, how that felt a little funny when you're watching it, but they're trying to get him the football there. And outside of that, it was mostly kind of like little choices, slants, like little underneath stuff. There's the kind of carry from the backfield that he gets. And I just felt like, there were other times where he's running routes down the field. He's running like a deep dig or a deep comeback. And I felt like the coverage was really, really tight, and the hook player is doing a good job getting underneath that responsibility. And I'm not saying that's Debo's fault, but I think when you look at Debo's skill set, it's yak. He does run a diverse route tree, but he doesn't run it as well as some of these top flight receivers. And I think you can feel that at moments in this game. And again, I'm not being critical of Debo because what he does is so unique and so special, but I think it's what is his skill set? How do we speak to that? And I think there were moments in this game where you kind of could feel where, like Terry, for example, would maybe be more impactful on some of these route concepts. And like I said, watching the film, there were times where it just didn't feel easy. The coverage windows were tight. And, and I think that's part of what you're feeling there is just a lack of that top end separation on the route, not only from Debo, but from Moore and Luke McCaffrey. And it just makes it hard. It makes it hard to kind of get completions, get them touches. And I do think, to be fair to Debo, that there is an awareness of where he's at on the field. There's an awareness of what he's doing. And again, there's that little bubble screen that they throw to him. I think it was in the second quarter where the tight end and the receiver kind of mess up the blocking combination. And it's we get 2-on-1 as opposed to getting a hat for a hat. If you get Debo in a hat for a hat situation, he might score there. Right. So even though the yardage total's down, I think a little bit of it's serendipity, a little bit of it's lack of top flight execution in certain situations. And I don't think this, means that Debo isn't going to be a huge part of this offense moving forward because he's a dynamic, explosive player. It's just this game didn't quite fall for him. And I do think that there are some things that, he does really, really well that I think the Bears were aware of, and they did a good job of kind of mitigating the effectiveness of him in those situations.
And to that point, Washington got more out of its other wide receivers in this game than it has at any point this season. The other three that they were using go 5 catches for 116 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Chris Moore, obviously, early on had 46 yards at a time where I think they had 54 passing. He had 3 grabs and a touchdown. Did have a drop on a 3rd and 2 that you'd like him to haul in on a little out route to the sideline. Jalen Lane was targeted twice but made a 37-yard catch down the field. An incredible route, little stop and go, torched his man. That was what we saw him doing in training camp really all summer long. Good to see him getting more comfortable and routing people up. And then McCaffrey's only catch, Luke caught a 33-yard touchdown on a beautifully designed play from Cliff Kingsbury where they pull the tackle out into space. Luke's blocking or looking like he's going to block. And then they set up this fake wide receiver screen to Debo. They attract 2 defenders. Luke slips out into space. Nobody's around him. So, those 3 guys, I know it was a limited opportunity for Luke, but, he also had a nice catch on an RPO that came back because of an illegal man downfield. I felt like maybe, Moore, because there were a couple catchable balls he didn't haul in, was the one guy that left a couple of, a little bit of meat on the bone. But for Lane to make the big catch and Luke to make the big catch and run touchdown, again, the young wide receivers step up without McLaurin and Noah Brown.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Luke touchdown because really, Luke earns that opportunity because of how he's been blocking, and the offense is able to give him that wide open opportunity because of how dynamic and dangerous Debo is, quite honestly. So everyone talks about Debo not having a lot of catches necessarily, but you feel him on that play. Jaquan Brisker, the corner, they're all eyes on Debo Samuel. They totally lose Luke. And again, that's the playmaking element and the fear that he strikes in a defensive unit. So I think it's great to see Luke get an explosive play. Really nice to see Moore kind of make a really tough catch in a red zone man-to-man situation and get that done. So obviously lots of things to be excited about, I think. And the Jalen Lane catch and run was double move down the field was also really special. So I do think it's good to see some of these young football players coming to life a little bit. with regards to kind of finding some explosive opportunities in the offense.
Luke is a kick returner, Logan. Returns of 28, 36, and 40.
Mm-hmm.
A 40-yard return to the 45, another one this week. It's every single week now. That one was brought back because of a penalty. But I will say, I mean, whatever conversations we were having about McCaffrey before the season, where you're kind of going, I just don't see it, or, I don't mean you specifically, but that's kind of the take within the fan base. Or, last year, the explosives, the big plays weren't there. I mean, he's averaging 23 yards per catch right now. Every single week, he's hauling in a big pass for this team. And I mean, not only in terms of, game value, but length. His longest catches by game over the last month, 33 for a touchdown, 50, 43 for a touchdown, and 19. So some of this is schemed up, right? He's had 2 of these at home where he scored on, wide open passes with nobody around him. But the diving catch for 50 yards, he's starting to put it together a little bit. You add in the kick returning game, this is a really, really helpful player right now.
No, absolutely. And I think helpful is a great way to describe him. And I think it's a guy that's kind of found his role in the offense, which is I'm going to do, and on the team, quite frankly, I'm going to do the dirty work. I'm going to make these hard returns. I'm going to make tackles on special teams. I'm going to block my face off on the perimeter, in the run surface, safeties, defensive linemen, corners. I'm going to put that effort into every single play. And I think he's been rewarded with some of these opportunities down the field, which is fantastic. So I don't know if he's ever going to be a quote unquote feature of the offense, but in terms of being helpful, absolutely. Obviously in this offense, like Debo, Zach Ertz, Terry, when he's healthy, will be the feature. And you see how dangerous those 3 guys can be. But having a supplemental piece like this, think about like De'Ami Brown last year, how he's able to kind of carve out a role early in the season, and that's slowly able to develop over the course of the year and he becomes De'Ami becomes a staple. I do think that's kind of a similar trajectory to what you could see with Luke here. And obviously it's not going to be the same as De'Ami, but I do think there is something to definitely be excited about, definitely be encouraged about. And it's to me, I think it's good for people to see this, like young football players. It starts with his professionalism and his selflessness. He's on the field because he's willing to do the dirty work. And he's able to stay on the field for some of these pass plays because of that other stuff he's willing to do. So, I think it's also true for Ben Sinnott, quite frankly. He's found some great opportunities to be physical in the run game. They're rewarding him with more opportunities. And I do think those opportunities in the pass game will come because, again, he's kind of sacrificed himself to the offense in a really humble, cool way.
Yeah, he's certainly helping in the run game. I still find it crazy that as a 2nd-round pick, they can't get him a target or a catch occasionally a quarter way through his 2nd year. That's very frustrating and not ideal, but he's certainly being a helpful football player, making himself useful. To your point, there's no doubt about that. As far as let's put a bow on it here with the O-line in the run game for a second, or just in general, pass pro, whatever. What did you see up front? And, how would you assess the performance of this line?
I actually thought, the offensive line, I think they do a good job. It's not the best offensive line in football, but they're a bunch of scrappy dudes. I think you could feel some of the consternation that the Bears put on them in terms of, line stunts on 1st and 2nd down in terms of stopping the run. We talked about the issues the heavy box structure creates in terms of angles. I thought on passing downs, there was a lot more creativity from the Bears in terms of, hey, we're going to run this ET with the pressure off the edge. We're going to really stress our offensive line's rules and communication. And in the context of some of that, there were some issues, a guy that you kind of felt at times was Wiley in a negative way. And again, I think Wiley's a really good football player, but there was a couple pressures, a couple kind of tough looks in the run game. But I don't think he played poorly. I just think he kind of felt like some of those negative moments a little bit with him. And I think everyone, when you kind of go down the line, had a moment like that. I think, like PFF, I don't always agree with what they're talking about, but I think when you kind of step back and look at it, you say, Josh Connerly has a green grade. Chris Paul has a green grade. Tyler Biadasz has a green grade. Laramie Tunsil has a green grade. I think when you watch the film, you feel that. You feel that efficiency. You feel that productivity. And then in the run game, I think, again, because of some of those box looks, those grades are a little bit lower. But I think that's a pretty good indicator of where they're at based on the film.
Commanders end up with 24 points. They move the football 5.5 yards per play, 329. Certainly not their A effort this season, but a game that if your defense can make a big stop late, maybe you find a way to win in inclement weather with the rain falling. All right, let's get to that defense next. The Commanders lose to the Bears on Monday Night Football. This is Take Command. Welcome back, Take Command with Logan Paulsen. I'm Grant Paulsen. Watch us 106.7 The Fan, Team 980 YouTube. Of course, listen to the pod wherever you get your audio 3 times a week. Logan, the Bears offense had a great plan coming out of the bye, and you knew they would. I mean, Ben Johnson is a savant. This guy's a star. And they go for 381 yards, 6.5 per play. They hit some big-time explosives for 55, 37, 25, 21 in the passing game. Ripped off some big-time runs, including 19 to kind of put the game on ice late. He had a couple weeks to prepare, and it looked like it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, obviously, I started the game up in the box, and just like the use of motion, the use of formation to kind of create some easy throws for Caleb Williams, I thought was outstanding. I thought the play action stuff was really fantastic. And that's kind of what he's known for, is kind of this, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. We're going to kind of marry formations. We're going to use motions and shifts to put you in conflict defensively. We're going to know kind of the response we're going to get versus certain coverages to give the quarterback easy answers. And I felt like that's what he did, but despite all that, despite how effective the game plan was, there's that beautiful screen in the third quarter. There's the explosive play they have to Luther Burton, on the kind of man-beating concept where you get the 2 posts and he's running the high cross. Despite all those really positive plays, I felt like the defense did a great job for the most part. We're going to talk about a couple plays here in a second of kind of weathering the big punches, weathering the kind of haymaker shots that he was able to create and get them bogged down in the red zone a couple times, make some plays, force field goals. And I forget the exact score, but wasn't it like 16-24 going into the fourth quarter or something like that? I don't remember the exact score. And so the defense, I mean, despite some of the beautiful game preparation and design from Ben Johnson, did a great job, I thought, of creating pressures, making Caleb Williams do Caleb Williams things, like taking ridiculous sacks at moments. You're like, what the heck's going on? Missing throws, all those types of things. And really comes down to kind of one play in terms of shifting that dynamic and shifting that perspective of the defense.
Caleb Williams would be maddening to evaluate for me if we did this in Chicago, because there are some really awesome things, like the throw he made on that deep cross you were talking about to Luther Burton down the field was flat-footed, and it was just arm strength, and it was perfect, and it was like, holy shnikes. There's just not many guys in the league that can do that. But God, he misses a lot of throws. I mean, just easy layup, 4, 5, 6 foot from the rim bunnies. Ben Johnson's got to bang his head against the wall. And then a couple of the sacks.
The sacks were
There's
crazy
just a
to me.
difference between this.
Crazy.
What's
the
that?
Sacks were crazy to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference. Sacks are not all created equal. And the running around and, he's on the sideline and he takes this shot instead of just flipping the ball out of bounds. The one right before they kick a field goal where he takes the -8 on, maybe it was Dorrance Armstrong, I think. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. But, not our problem, not the guy we're breaking down. But I don't know, every game I feel like when I watch him, it's so complicated. If someone's like, how did he play? It's like, how much time you got? You know what I mean?
I think that's right. Because I think he played well, but I think this is how, we talked about this in the previous show, this is how he plays. You're going to get some good wow moments, and then all of a sudden you're going to get some what the heck? You know what I mean? And it's crazy looking at the PFF stuff. They have him with 3 turnover worthy plays, and they have him in a red grade, a 42%. And even though he did some good things, I feel like the scheme led to those good things. And I feel like we should have had an interception on the Frankie Louvu 4th and 1. We should have had an interception on the Mikey Sanders still 1 to the tight end in the red zone, right? Then I think there was, I can't remember the other one, but those are game-changing moments. The sack in 2 minutes, the sack in the red zone. You go from being able to potentially kick a short field goal or even go for it on 4th down to being nowhere near that. It just, those kinds of decisions, those are just 4 or 5 that we just talked about right there. But when you are running how many pass plays they run, 38 pass plays. That is a significant percentage of your offense when you're taking those negative plays. So yes, I do think he played well, but this is kind of how he's played through the year. And is he playing way better than last year? Absolutely. And did he play well enough to win? Absolutely. But I think he needed some help from the Commanders. And it's just such a weird juxtaposition between him and Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, who just always seems to be aware of the situation, always seems to make the right decision. I mean, we're talking about this interception that Jaden Daniels threw, like, oh my God, like I can't believe he did, because he just doesn't do that stuff, right? He just doesn't do that. And every other time he's like, we didn't talk about his scrambling, Jaden. I'm getting like fired up now just thinking about it. Like he just, the concept is dead. It's covered. It's blanketed. They're under, and he's able to scramble for 15. And just Caleb doesn't elevate the offense in the same way. Like I think we talked about when you first started doing the show, Jaden's elevation of the offense, and he just does it so consistently. And Caleb, it's the other way around. The offense is elevating him. So it's a testament to Ben Johnson. And, again, I think Caleb's going to be a good player, but you feel that in games like this. You feel his inconsistency in games like this.
Yeah, I think that's well said. All right, let's dive back into the defense. There's a couple things.
Yeah, sorry, getting lost over here. Just
we have time.
Wandering.
No, I think it's my fault, but it's a good conversation. Defensively, so here's how I want to start this. I remember a defensive coach one time telling me, like, there's one play in every game that you really want to take away.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? Uh-huh. And so it's never been easier. I always think about the defense through that lens, like what one play would I take away? And it's never been easier to do that than in this game, where they give up that 55-yarder on a third down where the Bears barely get set. I think it was like a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, whatever it was, 3rd and medium. And I mean, it's almost a delay of game, like a stale 0. They get the snap off. They've got this, probably a choice route. I couldn't really tell. Maybe you could, but it was like an out route by the running back into space. He was going to get the first down pretty easily. Quan Martin's coming over to the sideline, and instead of shoving him out of bounds, tries to make like what is a form tackle right on the sideline. It just misses the tackle at about the 40. Would have been about a 15-yard conversion. Instead, he runs the rest of the way, and DeAndre Swift has a career night, and the Bears score, and they get within 2 points, and the whole game changed in that moment. So take us through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a choice, but it's kind of like it's kind of a cool concept. It's like you're getting two kind of in-breaking routes, kind of pick routes, and he's going to run an out. And Quan in man coverage, the way they're running it now, is attacking that from depth. So he's going to get the first down no matter what. And I actually think Quan, like down to down, played really well. Like he tackled well. He's in good position. He's making plays on the football. Like I'd say this is one of those things where, excluding this one play, this is one of his better games I've seen him play here. But obviously, like this one play is really impactful and really significant. So obviously, like, talking with Fletch about it afterwards, it's like, yeah, like that's going to happen versus that coverage. You're going to get that ball completed. It's just now you got to make the tackle, right? And make Caleb Williams drive the field, and he's going to screw it up at some point. You're going to get to a third down. They're going to kick a field goal, and you're going to be fine. But you missed the tackle, and it ends up being a 56-yard touchdown. And one of the things we talked about in the preview show is you just had to manage those moments. You had to limit those. And, like Ben John, and I think on the whole, the offense did a pretty good job of it. Like we talked about the screen that ends up being like a 36-yard gain, but you get the tackle, right? Talked about the one of Luther Burton. You get the tackle, you get the third down, they have to kick a field goal. Like those moments, again, like weathering those storms are extremely important. So they get the first down, and then it just compounds and ends up being an explosive play. And that's the lifeblood of this team. It's turnovers and it's explosive plays on offense. And unfortunately, you gave them one by missing that tackle there, and it really changes the complexion of the entire game. Because, like when you go back and look at it, you're like, man, like this is a pretty good run fit. This is a pretty good job by Kinlaw. Great sack by Dorrance here. Great pursuit by Frankie. Like Frankie, this is the best pass rushing game I've seen him have in a long time. Bobby Wagner making tackles. And then all of a sudden it's like, shoot, why are we in this situation? It's because we missed one tackle. And I think that's the tough thing about defense. And I've talked about this a ton. Like offensively, you can have a bunch of red in the ledger and have a couple green plays, but they're explosive plays for touchdowns, and you can win a football game. Defensively is the complete inverse. And what I mean is, like, you can have a ton of green, just excellent football plays, and you can have one or two bad ones, and it leads to negative plays, like explosive plays offensively. And this is what that felt like. It just felt like, man, like this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Oh, shoot, here's an explosive play, and the complexion of the game is completely different.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, it's about 10 and a half minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they've held the 3 field goals, and they've only given up 16 points, as you're saying. So are there, flaws? For sure. They give up a lot. They're going to. There's error in the back end of this defense. This is not the strength of the team. It's at times going to get exposed. I mean, they're just not going to be a very good pass defense team. I think we've got enough sample to see that at this point. But the 55-yarders are what's going to kill you. It's the long catch and run for Bijan Robinson. Like they've got to find a way, Logan, to prohibit this play. And I think what you said that I like most was like the idea of making teams earn it. Because when they did that last night, even as a susceptible defense, even as a group that's not going to finish in the top 10 or 12 in the league or whatever, it works. Yeah. Like that is the formula, especially on a wet night. Like, and the Bears just aren't that good. I mean, it's not like you're playing the Chiefs a couple of weeks from now at Arrowhead. Like they're going to screw up. So they had 9 penalties. Someone's going to line up in an illegal formation and wipe away a touchdown. Somebody's going to drop a pass on the sideline. Caleb's going to misfire to Olamide Zaccheaus. That they had that play to, speaking of Zaccheaus, where I think he might have scored like a 70-yard touchdown. I don't know who would have called him. But on that little
choice route
he runs, they get him one-on-one with Bobby, and everyone else is going in the other direction, and he just puts the ball on the ground. Yep. Like, they're going to give you a few of those because they are a kind of a middling team at best. And you got to take advantage.
Well, I think that's the whole point. That's the whole point of good I mean, that's the whole philosophy of the Legion of Boom. Do you remember them? Like, best defense of all time. Oh, my gosh. They basically were like, you can't do it. Most offenses can't do it 18 plays in a row. They just can't do it. They're going to make a false start, holding penalty, illegal formation. You're going to drop a pass. We're going to get to 2nd and 10, and then we're going to jack you up. And I'd say for the most part, they did a pretty good job of that last night, right? You're going to find your explosive chunks. But like we just talked about it, Caleb Williams in those moments wasn't able to execute 3 field goals in the red zone. Like, that's winning football. That's for this team, that's winning football. And in this one instance, again, I hate to harp on it, but it's you just miss a tackle. You don't push them out of bounds. And that's the difference, quite honestly, in the game. And people talk about, the fumble late, the interception. None of the, and I think that's the tough thing about this game is there are, I don't know, what would you say, Grant? Probably 6 plays in this game that if you just switch them from a negative to a positive, like you don't fumble, you make this tackle, you don't throw the interception, Bill holds on to that ball, you win the game. And we're not switching all of them, just switch one of them, and you probably win the football game. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about this game is that.
Yeah, I think that's an important caveat because most people would be listening to that and go, well, no kidding. You could do that every single game if you switch 6 plays for any team. But you're saying one of 6.
Switch one of 6, exactly, and all of a sudden you're like, man, we win this kind of going away. But you don't. And I think that's the thing that is, for me as an analyst, for me as a fan of the team, for me as a fan of football, that's so irritating is that, like, I've been a part of these games and you just look back and you're sick to your stomach because you're like, man, it's one moment that we could have been better at and we would have won the game.
All right, so here's one area where we got to, I think, take the defense to task a little bit after this game was the run game, where they gave up 145 on the ground net to the Bears, and DeAndre Swift ends up going for over 100 on just 14 carries. And specifically, they get the ball back in the final couple of minutes, and I think what was so frustrating for me after that Daniels fumble, they didn't need a big explosive. Like, they didn't need Caleb Williams to make a throw. They didn't force Washington did not force him to make in the rain, someone make a nice catch, him put a ball in a small window. They just pin and pull you until they kick the field goal. They toss the ball out wide and they just gas you on the ground. I thought the Bears would have a little bit of success on the ground, even though they hadn't run the ball all year effectively, because, again, they're able to get to the outside with speed, and it's where Washington's defense against the run has not been very good, really dating back to last year, frankly. And I always wonder about that kind of matchup. We talked about it with Bijan in Atlanta. But what went wrong in the run game? You noticed Kinlaw a couple times with some turnaround plays at the line of scrimmage where he blew guys up. Johnny Newton had a couple as well. Deron Payne had a moment or two. But by and large, this was a team. I think the reason I'm maybe the most annoyed by the run defense in this game, Logan, you can't let the Bears look like that against you based on the fact that they just hadn't run it for almost a month.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really sticks out, honestly, is just run fits. You know what I mean? It's not like Schematically, they're doing stuff that's challenging. Challenging is, I'm going to put that in air quotes. It's just like they're going to test your rules, and I think it's
What do you mean by that?
it's
Sorry.
just like simple stuff. Like, hey, we're gonna we're gonna switch sides at the tight end. We're gonna force the nickel to have to fit this run to the front side. Like, we're gonna motion away. The backside nickel's got to now fit the C gap. Like,
so a lot of their pre-snap
yeah,
stuff.
and or formation stuff. And I think also the variety makes it tough. Like, we're gonna run a lot of downhill, kind of tight mid zone. And again, obviously Kinlaw and Payne, Johnny Newton, I think deserve a ton of credit because they just ate that up like it was Wendy's or something. You know what I'm saying? Like me at the all you can eat, buffet. So like,
is Wendy's your go-to fast food?
I haven't had
McDonald's
Wendy's and how old am I? I'm 38. I haven't had Wendy's in probably 30 years. So
right,
that's tough.
No, you don't eat real food, and you're a box turtle who eats lettuce. But in a world where you ate food, like, and enjoyed it, and you got something out of it beyond just fueling the machine, would you go Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King? Like, what would be your fast food in a world where the definition is like you get it through a window?
So I do Chick-fil-A because they have the grilled sandwich there, so I like that. If I'm gonna go burger, I like to go like a little bit higher end burger, you know what I'm saying, than as opposed to fast food.
Like a Five Guys situation.
Dude, I am a Five Guys guy. I like Five Guys a lot, like In-N-Out. There's something about that I just makes me happy, and it just sits well with me. So I will do that for sure.
Yeah, when the Paulsens got together and took the kids to the park a few years ago, we got some Five Guys.
Yeah, it was very nice, right? Just living like kings, like just a nice lean burger, no sauces, some veggies on there, a little accoutrement. It's very nice. Very.
Yeah. You pummeled a whole bag of fries.
I would not do that. That's not true. For a fact that's not true.
I don't think you touched the fries. But that's all right. More for us. All right. So anyways, I apologize. But run defense.
Yeah. And so really what it comes down to, like, I was talking to Fletch during the broadcast, and I was like, and he's like, man, we got 2 in a gap on this one. We got a guy playing inside on this run. And when you're playing heavy boxes like the Bears were, and you play out of a gap, and the back hits that gap, it's going to be a gash. And so I think you saw that, like, in this game, like guys just misfitting runs. That pin pull stuff challenges those rules a little bit. But some of the runs they misfit, you're like, that's Wanda. That's like day one install. Like, why are we having a hard time with that? So I think there's some stuff that they definitely got to get corrected in that regard. And guys just got to, I think Joe Wood Jr., when he says, like, don't put a cape on, I think it applies to this too. It's like, sometimes you just got to eat this block, fit this gap, not peek your head outside, and just be a good soldier for the defense. And sometimes they weren't able to get that done, which I'm sure is very frustrating for Joe Witt.
4th time in 6 games they didn't get a takeaway defensively.
But gosh, like, they were so close. And I know everyone's probably tired of people saying that, but like, it's just like there's times like the one Frankie Louvu, the one that Mikey Sanders still that bounces off his hands, and he's got such great hands in the red zone. Like, those are game-changing moments. And so it's not like they're in bad position necessarily. It's just like, that's the one thing about turnovers that I think is really tough, is mathematically, so statistically, that is one of those things that always regresses to the mean, always. So you can have a very high like turnover production one year, very low turnover production the next. It's a very fickle statistic in that way. And so I'm hoping, what is this for 6 games, that we've had a little bit of kind of negative statistical advantage. And over the next 6 games, it's going to look a little bit different. That pendulum swings towards us a little bit more. And if that does happen, obviously we get the offense more possessions, we win more football games. So fingers crossed that we get a little bit of, I'm going to say, luck, quote unquote, in the turnover category.
I did think they did some pretty good things, like blitz package stuff. There was a play where Darnell Savage came and forced the ball out of Caleb Williams' hand and kind of got off the field on the 3rd down. They had another one where Bobby Wagner came downhill early in the game on one of those delayed blitzes. He was hitting against the Raiders, and it worked very well. Noticeably got pressure by bringing guys from the back 7 a few times on passing downs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that Joe Wood Jr. has done a great job of. He did a great job of last week. It's like, when you get in those moments, he knows, he has a good feel for like what pressure packages to bring, how to get guys to win one-on-ones. And I think that's something that I've been really pumped about for the last 2 games. Coming out of the Atlanta game, I felt like they kind of did a little bit of self-scout and said, we got to be better at this. And they have been. And so as long as they can be a little bit more consistent on first and second down, which is something we just talked about with the run game, again, just do what you're supposed to do, be in the gap you're supposed to be in. And I understand there's guys on the other team that are trying to prevent you from doing that, but that lets us get to the good stuff. That lets us get to the thing that is our fastball pitch at the moment, which are these really well-designed, well-thought-out, well-executed blitz packages and line stunts on third down. And you saw how effective that could be versus the Chargers. And here we don't get to see it quite as much because there are a couple of explosive runs on first down that keep us in. They keep the Bears in a positive down and distance, keep them on schedule, and don't let Joe Wood Jr. kind of throw his pitch.
I want to hit a couple special teams items before we get out of here and put a bow on this installment of Take Command. In the wake of a Monday Night Football loss in primetime to the Chicago Bears, the Commanders fall to 3-3. Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen on Take Command. Welcome back to Take Command. He's Logan Paulsen, longtime NFL tight end. I'm Grant Paulsen. We appreciate you checking us out. The Commanders at 3-3 now. Here's one issue. They're 1-3 in the conference. So they did win their division game week 1 against the Giants. That's good. Otherwise, in the NFC now, they are 0-3. And from a division perspective, the tiebreaker is record in the division, and the East is very much up for grabs. The Eagles don't look quite as good as they were last year. Obviously, the Cowboys can't stop losing. You play them this week in a massive game. They just lost to the Carolina Panthers. But losses to Green Bay in the NFC North, Atlanta in the NFC South, now Chicago in the NFC North, your last 3 setbacks here. I mean, at 3-3, the wild card resume gets a little bit dicey. So they're going to have to put some hay in the barn against the NFC as they move forward. If there's such a thing as like worrying about your resume, and I know it's early, but all these games are going to matter in the end, Logan. But when you get down to the final week, there's only so many of these. The fact that 2 of your wins are against the AFC, you'd love to flip that because it's just not, you're not putting together a very wild card friendly resume so far.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, like one of the benefits about it being where we're at in the season is like there's a lot of games left to play, a lot of football games left to play, and just got to start winning some ball games. I think that's really what it comes down to. You got to stack some wins back to back, and I remember having conversations in 2012 about like we were 3-6, not looking very good. You know what I mean? Having a rough outing. People talking about losing their jobs and being evaluated moving forward. Then we rip off 7 in a row, and so obviously you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to win out potentially to make the playoffs necessarily. But I do think at this point of the season, these games like the one against Chicago are valuable in terms of learning opportunities. And if you can apply the lessons learned from this game to the Dallas Cowboys, and then we get a little bit more confident, we apply the lessons we win from that game to the Kansas City Chiefs. This team, I think, having seen what they could do last year and seen flashes of what they can be this year in games like this, in games like the Chicago game, I think they could string something together here. And that's ultimately what they got to do. Like, I'm not so concerned about wins and losses versus opponents now. Obviously, that's going to matter down the road. But if we can string some together, we control our own destiny. I think it's my point. And that's the way I'd look at it as a player. That's the way I'd kind of, if I was coaching this team, that's the way I'd kind of impart that information to the team. So as much as these games could and probably will be in fact impactful down the road, we still control our own destinies. So let's make sure we control that.
No, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, and that's the perspective I think people come here for. And I love you're telling us how they're thinking about it in the locker room, and it's true. And it's done, by the way. You can't sit here and dwell on it. Like, all you can do is play the ones in front of you. But there's only so many. Yeah, and so a big chunk of them, a percentage of them, you've now lost in the conference. And I say that only to say, moving forward, these NFC games are going to be even more paramount just from a resume perspective. Because at 3-3, you got to go 9-2 to get to last year's record. Like you're looking at a 10-7, hopefully, kind of situation. And now you're talking about tiebreakers. And so when you play against Seattle in a couple weeks, that is a playoff caliber game. You got to view it that way. When you play against Detroit, by the way, the schedule coming up here in the next month is a bear. Brutal. I mean, until I don't ever want to act like there's a game in this league where you can kind of take a breath, because that's not true. But the Madrid game against Miami and that's all the way on week 11, right? So you're talking about November 16th. That's the next time you play a team that is not playoff caliber other than Dallas, and that's just a division game with a juggernaut offense. So I consider that a really hard game as well coming up. It's your rival. It's not like, I think they were 2-point favorites on the look-ahead line before last night. But Kansas City on the road, the Seahawks are the real deal, man. Detroit might be the best team in the NFC. I know they just lost to Kansas City, but they had ripped off a month in a row winning football before that. This is the toughest stretch of their season coming off of this really disappointing loss. A couple special teams thing really quickly. I had kind of put Matt Gay into the pile of, all right, let's leave him alone. Let's stop talking about this. He'd made 8 in a row. He missed a 50-yard field goal last night. I'm still fine here in that, he bounced back and connected on a field goal later in the game from 50 plus. So he ended up 1 for 2 in the contest. But I just want to get your thoughts on like where we're at with him, because you can't, if there's going to be tight wins, if you're not going to be the team last year that kind of buried teams and scored 37 or whatever, there's not a lot of margin for error. So what's your thought on that? I see a lot of fans saying, oh, they got to go get a kicker. A lot of times it's not better what's through the other door. You know what I mean? It's not always Jake Moody who makes 4 field goals and wins you a game walk-off.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that like it's been my experience in the league is if kickers are not on teams right now, they're not ready to kick in the NFL. What does that mean? So there's been tryouts like when I was in Atlanta, the kicker Matt Bryant got hurt and he was kicking. He was like 45 years old. He'd been kicking forever. He had ice water in his veins. Excellent. And so they brought in a bunch of guys, and you're like, man, these guys are crazy talented. Like they're booming this thing from 58 yards pretty consistently, and they strong leg, good personality seemingly, and they bring in 3, 4, 5 guys. And they all look pretty good, And then you'd get that same guy in an NFL game, and there's something about the pressure and the moment that is just different for those guys. And they'd miss kicks, and you'd kind of say, "Oh, bring the other guy in. He looked good." He'd miss a kick, and then you're kind of on this carousel of guys that haven't built up that emotional and mental callus to kicking at the NFL level. So I would kind of give Matt Gay a long leash here, in terms of kind of where he's at, just because I know through the other door, I've seen what that looks like. And I'm sure all these, Adam Peters is well aware of what the current kicking landscape looks like in terms of free agent kickers. So just to bring, for people who maybe aren't familiar, it is bleak out there. You're not going to go find like kind of someone who's uber talented and uber consistent just roaming around on the street necessarily. So I think it's okay. I think obviously it's been up and down. And that's one of the plays I was talking about earlier. Make that kick, you force Chicago to have to drive the length of the field at the end of the game to score a touchdown, and obviously that maybe gives you some leeway in terms of winning and losing the ball game. But I think you just give him a little bit more time, see where he's at, and go from there.
Yeah. Also, I think we are collectively looking at the Matt Gay issue, if there is one, through the lens of just how amazing kicking's gotten in the NFL. And what I mean by that, that's a good point,
actually. Yeah.
Like, I think we watch all these other games and we just see guy hitting 57, 59. I mean, there was a 67-yard record-setting field goal hit in the NFL this week that was taken away via penalty by Evan McPherson. Like the new juiced balls, it's crazy. But if I just was to tell you, 5 years ago, that a guy would be 10 of 14 right now with 3 of his 4 misses from 50 or more and was 16 for 16 on extra points, you'd be like, okay, cool, no problem.
Yeah,
like,
that's fine.
To me, until he's missing kicks inside of 50, and I know that that's changed a little bit. It's almost like inside of 55 now.
Yeah.
But that's when you will have me willing to hear the conversation.
I think that's
but as long as it's
point.
50 plus, like I'm just not going to panic on that. If there was a great option, okay, great. If one of the best kickers in the league became available for some reason tomorrow, sure, no problem. But as you said, is someone out there better than the guy that Adam Peters and this staff thought so much of that they gave him a record amount of money on a 1-year deal this year? I don't think anybody's better out there than Matt Gay right now.
And to that point too, like he's been a guy that's been very consistent inside of 50, but I forget the exact number. It's like outside of 53 yards, he's like almost 50%. There's something weird about the statistics there in terms of his kicking.
Well, in his career, I could tell you he's
Okay.
32 of 52 from 50 plus.
32.
So he's missed.
Yeah,
he's missed 20 kicks in his career from that distance. But if you look at the last 3 years as an example, he's got one miss under 40, which I think was just blocked, and then he's only got 2 misses inside of 50, like 40 to 49 otherwise. So almost all of his misses over the last 3 years are 50 plus.
And so I think that's understanding like who he is as a player and understanding that in these moments where you're asking him to kick these long kicks, you're stressing him a little bit. And I think as long as that's an awareness, like, for example, this is a good example, like Logan Paulsen running a go ball in a man-to-man situation, probably not going to win that one, right? But you got me blocking a 6 technique, you're going to win that one. So I think there is some context there in terms of like what he's good at, where he's most successful. And I do think the staff is aware of that.
One other note on special teams: the Commanders blocked a kick. They're on Payne. I don't know if it was a low trajectory. It looked like how much of that is on Moody, how much of that is on the good guys. But Payne, Kinlaw, pretty awesome rep for them on special teams.
Yeah, huge rep. And I think the thing about like one of the things is in the broadcast booth, I remember looking at Fletch and being like, I think they're going to block a kick today. Because like they were getting really good push, and also the ball was coming out really low. So I'm like, if they're far enough back, like they're going to block one because they're pretty much right on his line. And, Coach Izzo does such a great job of coaching up that block point for them. Like you can tell they know exactly where that line is of the ball. Like they go out, they kind of line it up and they get it perfectly situated. So good to see them get that done, but it definitely, you can see the preparation, the execution kind of meeting there in that moment.
Did you call your shot before the game or during the game?
So it was during the game. I looked over to Fletch and I was like, I think they're going to block this kick because he kicked
the one right before they blocked it.
Yeah, like I think so. What happened was they kicked 2 field goals prior to that, right? It was the first 6 points of the game, and after the second one, I was like, I think they're going to block one in this game, is what I said to Fletch.
Wow.
Yeah, and so and Fletch was like, yeah, that ball's coming out really low, and there's just something like you can just see it in the moment, like when you watch enough football and. It happened, so I felt pretty smart when that happened, obviously.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Me?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what am I doing tomorrow?
Like, do you have any plans?
Nothing really. Just hanging out, maybe doing some work, going to watch some film.
Can you go with me to Vegas?
Good bit, Coach.
Great
bit.
I went a long way for that one. You were very confused.
I was like, what is happening?
The people watching on YouTube are going to be like, I could see in your head, you're like, why in the hell did he pivot to that? Like, what is going on here? All right, well, that was not a fun game. That was a fun conversation. 25-24, Bears over the Commanders. Washington is 3-3, and it is now Dallas week. Next time you hear from us, detailed breakdown on the Cowboys. By the way, they can move the football. That is a really, really good offense. They can run the ball. Dak's playing his butt off. They are terrible defensively. So certainly a game where Jaden Daniels and this offense are going to have to shine and protect the football. Washington has a good chance to get a win if they could do that. But we'll break it all down next time. We are with you in a couple of days on Take Command. Subscribe, rate, review, wherever you get your audio. Of course, you can watch us on the YouTube pages, 1067 The Fan, Team 980. For Logan Paulsen and our producer, Evan, I'm Grant saying so long. Thanks for hanging out.